Will everyone please join me in Gassho by placing your hands together and repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats. Good morning, everyone. Well, we are definitely in the season of fall. If you look outside, you'll notice there is not really sunlight. There is clouds and a little bit of rain that has already happened and may continue to happen. But that is the Northwest for you. I actually really love this weather. So today we are talking about Ohigan. Okay, Dharma School students, do you remember what Ohigan means? A little bit. Okay, give your best guess as to what Ohigan means. That's exactly right. Everyone give a hand. Yeah. Exactly right. Crossing to the other shore. That is exactly what Ohigan means. So Ohigan means crossing from the shore of delusion and selfishness to the shore of selflessness and enlightenment. Okay? So what does this mean exactly? This means that during the time of Ohigan, as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, we should do our best to think on our behavior, on how we understand the Dharma, and how we treat other people, okay? How we treat other people. You would think, or you would hope, that everybody in this room, including myself, by the way, I'm not eliminating myself from this equation here, would know that on average or on a regular daily basis, we would do our best to treat all living beings, especially the people around us, with a great deal of respect and honesty and compassion. Sometimes we deal with people we don't like. Sometimes we deal with people who get on our nerves sometimes. Sometimes we deal with people who disagree with us. And I'm certain many of you who go to school probably go to class and you might think in the back of your heads, oh no, like I have to sit next to this person again. I don't like them very much. Oh no, I have to, I have to listen to this teacher's lecture today. Today's Wednesday, I have to go to this teacher's lecture. They're so boring, right? So maybe you don't say it out loud, which is good. You shouldn't say these things out loud or do these things, right? But internally, you're kind of thinking this, right? You're kind of thinking this sort of like, we say in Japanese, monku, which means kind of complaining, right? This kind of inner complaining of, I have to do all of these things I don't like. And some of you, maybe even some of you, and by the way, I won't take offense to this, right? Are thinking, oh, I have to get up early and I have to go to temple and I have to chant these things I don't like or listen to Sensei's Dharma message. I just want to hang out with my friends. I want to go to coffee hour and eat, yummy snacks, right? It's okay. I don't take offense to this. And you know what? I sometimes have this feeling believe it or not, and I'm being totally transparent and honest, right? I sometimes wake up thinking, oh, that's right, it's Sunday. I have to give a Dharma talk. I have to get up and get the onaijin ready. I did a service yesterday. Do I have to do a service again today, right? All of these things, these little things go through my head. And this is okay because I am unenlightened. Now, that being said, right, I still get dressed up and I still set up the onaijin with the help of my wonderful minister's assistants, of course, and I still come to service, right? All of these things I might think or I might do, but at the end of the day, I still follow through, right? And that is a perfect example of waking up maybe on the shore of delusion, but crossing over to the shore of enlightenment. And I'm pretty certain that everyone here, including especially the Dharma School students, do this for the majority of the time as well. You wake up every day thinking, maybe there's a little part of like, I don't want to go to school, or I don't want to go to temple, or I don't want to go to this family obligation, all of these things, right? But at the end of the day, right, you wake up and you get yourselves up, you get yourselves dressed, and you walk out the door, and you live your life, and you do what is required. Now, there are days where we slip. There are days where we stumble and fall, and there are days where we don't do what we're supposed to do. And you know what? I'm not saying continue doing that, but that's okay. Everyone is allowed a slip day sometimes. And but that being said, it's important that we recognize those slip days. It's important that we recognize the times that we do fall short. And this is what Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu teach us on a daily basis. To recognize our flaws, to accept our flaws, to be honest about our flaws, but then to continue moving forward in life despite our flaws. Okay? So this is a very, I think, a good message for all of us, not just Dharma school students, that we sometimes wake up on the shore of delusion and entitlement or selfishness. You know, we want things to be so easy for us. We want things handed to us sometimes. But other times, right, maybe we genuinely see someone in pain. Maybe we genuinely see someone suffering. We see someone who needs help. And what do? We do our best to help that person. Perhaps there is an inner part of you, or there's an inner voice kind of encouraging you, maybe I should help this person. Maybe I should reach out to this person. Or maybe I should just sit with this person and be with them for a second, right? You may recognize these times. And it is in that moment as well that Namo Amida Butsu is hard at work. You know, when we put our hands together and say Namo Amida Butsu, we're not saying it just to say it. Okay, it's not just this thing, okay, I have to say Namo Amida Butsu 3 times because Sensei says so, right? We're putting our hands together and saying Namo Amida Butsu because we are genuinely affected by the message of the Buddha Dharma, by the message of Shakyamuni Buddha. Again and again, we are taught the message of interdependence and permanence, the ultimate realities of this world, the ultimate realities of our existence. And yet, time and time again, we sometimes fall into this world of living selfishly, living as if only my problems matter, living as if I'm the only one who knows what's right. And it is in that time that we recognize, ooh, we are on the shore of delusion. We are on the shore of ignorance. And then we realize, maybe this person next to me who made me mad had a bad day too. Maybe this person next to me who said something not very nice had something not very nice said to them, which caused them to say something not very nice. And now that I recognize this, am I going to say something not very nice? Or am I going to try and help myself and the other person by responding with compassion and kindness? Right? This doesn't mean, and of course, especially for the Dharma school students, this doesn't mean be a doormat or, let others walk all over you or, lose your sense of, of self-respect. Not saying that at all. If people are genuinely bullying you, you should definitely stand up for yourself. But that doesn't mean as well that responding all the time with anger or with your own delusions will help the matters either. This is a very sometimes thin line that we have to really introspect with each other. When someone makes you mad or when someone gets you angry, I encourage you all, take a breath. Just stop for a moment and ask yourself, is what I'm going to say going to help the situation, or is it going to make it worse? How can I divert the situation without escalating it to get more angry, more hatred, more of the 3 poisons? These are the questions as Buddhists we have to ask ourselves. And as you Dharma school students go back into your classrooms, go back out into the world, and for some of you going back to college, you then really have to ask yourselves, is my response adequate? Is my response justified? Am I just yelling at this person to make myself feel better? Or am I just going, or can I respond with a deep sense of calm and not, again, not taking abuse, but realizing that responding in anger will hurt you more or hurt the situation more than it will solve or correct the problem. So this is why I think it's very important for us, especially as students of the Dharma, to heavily contemplate what it means on this special day of Ohigan, between the shore of delusion and the shore of enlightenment. And ask yourselves, which shore are you on right now at this very moment? Think about it. Ask yourselves that. Which shore am I on? And is that the shore I want to be on? So I would like to thank all of the Dharma School students for coming to service today in this wet and rainy weather. I know that sometimes with this kind of weather, it's easy to stay home and stay in bed and stay inside, but all of you walked to the other shore by coming to temple today. Just joking. But thank you all so much for coming to service today, and please join me in Gassho and repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats. Will everyone please join me in Gassho as I recite the words of our founder, Master Shinran Shonin. Suppose there is a traveler journeying 100,000 li towards the west, when suddenly along the way he comes upon two rivers in a single channel, one of fire extending southward and one of water extending north. Each river is 100 paces across, immeasurably deep and endless to the north and south. Dividing the fire and water is a single wide path, 4 or 5 inches wide. This path from the eastern bank to the western bank is 100 paces in length. Billows of water surge over the path and flames sweep up to scorch it. Water and fire thus alternate without break. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats. Good morning, everyone. The quotation that I shared with you all today comes from Master Shinran Shonin's Kyogyo Shinsho, which is considered his magnum opus, or his most major work. And in this, he quotes a parable given to him by Venerable Master Shan Dao that talks about the river of fire and the river of water. And if you're having some trouble imagining this, there is actually a nice picture or a depiction of this parable right along the wall here. You can see there's a river of water and a river of fire, and there's like one lone traveler who's kind of traversing that small white path. And behind, and you see there on the shores, there are bandits and monsters trying to entice the person back. And then, but then there are 2 Buddhas you see along the way as well. In the water there is one Buddha, which is supposed to be Shakyamuni Buddha, or the great teacher, who tells us of the Dharma, and Amida Buddha's Pure Land to the west. And then across the bank there, you see Amida Buddha shining wisdom and compassion towards us to further draw us to the shore of wisdom and compassion, or the Pure Land. The fire represents sort of our passions, or sort of our kind of base, shall I say, imperfections, like our anger and our hatred, when we get really, really angry about things. The water represents our lust and our greed for things, right? So when we all want things. And so this is a perfect symbolism of traversing the path of life that we walk on a daily basis, which is that white path. And you notice that in this parable, the path is very, very narrow. Maybe some of you might think that this red carpet here in the middle of the hondo to come up to offer incense, right, is kind of narrow in itself. Think of the pews getting squished to about 3 to 4 inches, right? Can you try walking that? That's quite hard and difficult, which probably means that inevitably you will get scorched by the fire or drenched by the water. And this happens to us too on a daily basis in life. I don't want to speak necessarily directly about recent events that have happened in this country, but I will say that when a major event does seem to happen, there is a visceral reaction that happens in response to it. And so many emotions get poured out. And the dangerous thing now is that there's so much media. So much of us, we can look on the internet, on the television, everywhere. We can see how people react to a major event that has happened. And it used to, and again, right, back when things, I guess, were, and I put this in quotation marks, right, simpler, right, when there were only few news media sources that had to actually check all the work that they do, right, they would give us information maybe in a slower manner, but at least to verify what is true and not true. But when we think about the teaching of Buddhism, this teaching has been passed down since over 2,000 years. And I would like to think that a religion that has survived this long, over 2,500 years, has something very efficient, very truthful, and very important to say. That is that Buddhism teaches us to not give knee-jerk reactions to things. And sometimes we as people cannot help it. Sometimes we get so stirred up by emotions that we make a visceral reaction or we say something that we regret later on. I'm certain all of us have been in fights before or verbal confrontations where we have said something to another person that we really wish we could take back, that we really wish that we didn't say. And sometimes it's very sad. These kind of arguments are things that can separate families for years. There are stories of brothers who haven't spoken to each other in over how many years, like 10 years. There are people, there are families falling out of love with each other because, of a horrible thing that was said or a terrible thing that was done. And this is the world that we do live in. It is very true. But it's not the only part of the world as well. As negative and as horrible as things may seem, there are also things of wonderful nature in this world as well. Acts of kindness, small acts of doing good. Even something as small and minute as acknowledgement. Just the other day, I was driving in the car, and we were coming up, speaking of narrow paths, right? Some of those roads where the road is kind of small that if there's two cars coming in opposing direction, one car has to kind of pull off to the side to let the other car pass, right? And I decided I'd be that car to go to the other side and let the other car pass. And then as the guy was passing me, he held up the peace sign to say thank you. And I can't tell you just how much that small gesture, I didn't even know who this person was. But just that one gesture alone reminded me that there is still good in this world. There is still light. There is still compassion. And sometimes I think, and I'm not saying shut ourselves off and bury our heads in the sand, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying to not be informed, but we need to take a break sometimes from social media and what we call doom scrolling, because all we see are things that we're addicted to, things that get us mad and riled up and want to respond in anger, things that make us, want to say something in response to somebody else. And now these days with social media, it is so easy for everyone to have a platform. But if we can actually just take a stop and really look at the world around us for what it is, I think it's very apparent that there is still kindness in this world. There is still compassion in this world. There are sociological issues and issues of racism and prejudice in this society that definitely need to be tackled. But there is also justice and kindness and love in this world as well. Maybe we as Buddhists should do our best to try to highlight those things a little bit more. And whenever I get a little upset about what's going on or doom scrolling, I sometimes do take a break by watching cute little kittens find new homes with kind owners and compassionate owners, or dogs who are adopted, or videos of dogs getting along with cats. Right? Those are some of the cutest videos I've ever seen. And it just makes, but then I kind of go back to the sad part again. I'm like, man, look at these dog and cat getting along to each other. What is so hard with human beings being the same way? Why are we so determined to not like one another? Why are we so determined to differentiate ourselves from other people? Why are we so determined to do me versus you? I'll tell you why. I know why. You all know why. Buddhism says the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. A simple teaching. All of us are afflicted with this. Greed, anger, and ignorance. Greed. We want things, not just physical things. We want to be right. We want to be heard. We want justice. We want things to be my way. Anger. Things don't go my way. It's your fault. You made this mess. This is all your fault. And now I get to punish you for that. Ignorance. The delusion that there is a difference between me and you. And again, speaking, of course, in reality, this isn't to say that I don't think that everyone in this room is special and unique. All of you are special and unique. But beneath the surface of all of this, right, I am just a human being as much as the rest of you. And I would like to think that if all of us just took one step back and recognized that all of us are human beings, that there is no difference underneath the surface between you and I, especially when it comes to our human organs. My intestine is not different than your intestine. My brain, right, while I may think different things, it's still made up of the same anatomy. Right? There are physical differences, yes, and it's very sad that sometimes these physical differences are the source of contention and hate and ignorance. And with this in mind, I think it is only proper that we talk about some of these difficult realities during Ohigan, because Ohigan is a time of going to the other shore. Now, of course, this doesn't mean just skipping to the end of the book, right? You can when you skip to the end of the book, you may know what the ending is, but you don't know what the journey is on how to get there. So we can't promote lazy Buddhism either, right? Where we just go, okay, I know, just say Nembutsu, that's world enlightenment, I'm good, I'm done, right? No, Shinran Shonin's book and works is this big. I mean, it may not seem this big to you from here, but there's a lot of depth in these teachings and a lot of clarifications. Even with the teaching just as simple as say Namo Amida Butsu, a lot of clarification has to be made. So with this in mind, during Fall Ohigan, there are so many layers to this holiday. Buddhist, of course, but changing times as well, and changing seasons, right? Even capitalism recognizes this. When you go to Costco, you see what kind of clothes they start to advertise. They're starting to advertise heating systems, right? They know, and of course also they're starting to put Halloween costumes for sale, lots of candy, right? Even capitalism knows of or understands the changing of the seasons. And yet at the same time, how deluded we are to think that we can control this type of change, or that we can use this change to benefit us. The important thing is to recognize and accept the change for what it is, to accept the impermanence for what it is. But then also to not get tethered into this world of anger and delusion when these changes happen. I will end my Spring Ohigan Dharma talk with a parable or a story actually from actually the Zen tradition, which I personally love and enjoy. There was actually a story of a monk, and I should have said, the name of this story, or the title of the story, is called Is That So? So there was this famous monk in this town in Japan, and he was quite beloved by the community. But then what ended up happening was there was a scandal. One of the women in the village got pregnant out of wedlock. And then when they asked her who the father was, she blamed the Zen. She said it was the Zen monk. So all the people turned their anger towards the monk and said, "How could you do this? You know, you are a horrible person." And the monk responded, "Is that so?" And then what ended up happening is the child was born, and then the villagers actually and the family took the child to the Zen monk and said, "You did this. This is your fault. This is your responsibility. You have to take this child." The monk held out his arms, picked up the child into his arms, and then just responded, "Is that so?" And then walked back into the temple. A few weeks went by, and the mother's grief and separation from the child caused her to get such full of anxiety. And she finally admitted that she lied about who the real father was. Turns out it was actually her secret boyfriend, who was the son of a fisherman, who actually did the deed. And so the villagers and the family went back to the monk and implored for him to return the child and said, "We were so wrong about you." They apologized to him, like, "You were so wrong. Can we please have the child back?" And the monk, being the compassionate man that he was, picked up the child, handed it back to the villagers, and just responded, "Is that so?" How we respond to things matters. And I can tell you, the Buddhist teachings can really guide us in this world of delusion and lies and suffering sometimes. Sometimes when people spout untruths, it's best maybe not to respond, with more lies or with verbal arguments, but just to respond with the question, "Is that so?" Thank you all so much for joining me for today's Ohigan service. In closing, will you please join me in Gasho and contemplate on the river of fire and the river of water as I read this parable to you once again. Suppose there is a traveler journeying 100,000 li toward the west, when suddenly along the way he comes upon two rivers in a single channel, one of fire extending southward and one of water extending north. Each river is 100 paces across, immeasurably deep, and endless to the north and south. Dividing the fire and water is a single white path, 4 or 5 inches wide. This path from the eastern bank to the western bank is 100 paces in length. Billows of water surge over the path, and flames sweep up to scorch it. Water and fire thus alternate without break. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Namanda 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 Namanda.